of the best trainers in the sport, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. Eddie, I know you know some Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, is that right?
No doubt, I know both of them very well.
Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, born Edward Dean Gregory, was one of the most skilled yet controversial light heavyweights of his era. Inside the ring, he was smooth, calculated, and devastating. Outside of it, he was fiery, outspoken, and never afraid to speak his mind.
Well, Eddie, I'm always behind you 150%.
From his early days in Brooklyn to his world championship reign, Eddie built a reputation that divided the boxing world. Fans loved his confidence. Fighters, however, often found him impossible to deal with. His sharp tongue, flashy style, and unwillingness to back down made him as many enemies as admirers. He wasn't just a boxer, he was a statement.
Yeah, man. You hear that? I'm being real. If you don't like it, I really don't care.
He demanded respect and made sure no one forgot his name. But with that boldness came animosity. Over the years, at least 10 fighters grew to truly despise Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, whether because of his trash talk, his ring tactics, or his unrelenting arrogance. Here are 10 boxers who hated Eddie Mustafa Muhammad the most, and the rivalries, grudges, and wars that defined his legacy.
But as Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, I was knocking everybody out.
1. Victor Galindez. Before Eddie became a world champion, he set his sights on Victor Galindez,
to put it all together if he's to win.
the Argentinian powerhouse who ruled the light heavyweight division in the mid-1970s. Galindez was a warrior, rough, relentless, and proud.
Taught them everything they know, but
Eddie called him out repeatedly, accusing him of ducking real American fighters. Galindez fired back saying Eddie talked like a champion but fought like a dancer. Their heated words never led to a fight, but the animosity lingered for years. Galindez refused to acknowledge Eddie as a legitimate contender, and Eddie dismissed him as a bully who never fought anyone smart enough to expose him. Even after Galindez lost his title, Eddie would still bring up his name, saying, "He knew I would have made him look silly." To Galindez, those words were unforgivable. 2. Matthew Saad Muhammad. The rivalry between Eddie Mustafa Muhammad and Matthew Saad Muhammad was one of the fiercest personality clashes in boxing history. Both men were brilliant light heavyweights. Both had converted to Islam, and both had egos that could barely fit in the same arena. Their paths crossed constantly, both chasing the same titles, the same respect, and the same spotlight. Saad Muhammad, known for his warrior spirit, despised Eddie's defensive, strategic style.
Local stations as we await.
He runs, I fight, Saad once said. Eddie didn't stay quiet. He mocked Saad's tendency to take too many punches, saying, "He fights like he's allergic to defense." When they finally met in the ring in 1979, 3. Marvin Johnson. Few fighters earned Eddie's respect, and Marvin Johnson wasn't one of them. The Indiana southpaw was a beast, fearless, powerful, and straightforward. Eddie saw him as all muscle, no brain, while Johnson saw Eddie as all talk, no guts. When they met in 1978, both were climbing the ranks. Johnson brought his trademark aggression, but Eddie's slick counterpunching frustrated him.
Somebody lost the mouthpiece.
Eddie won by stoppage, humiliating Johnson in front of a national audience. 4. Yaki Lopez. Yaki Lopez, one of the most beloved fighters of his time, represented everything Eddie Mustafa Muhammad didn't. Lopez was humble, hardworking, and quietly determined.
Spinks trying to go to the body, desperately trying to set up Mustafa Muhammad for a last-second knockout.
Eddie was loud, confident, and brash. When Lopez earned a title shot against Eddie in 1980, he saw it as a blue-collar hero versus a flashy showman. Eddie didn't make it any easier. He mocked Lopez's style, saying, "He fights like he's stuck in slow motion." Inside the ring, Eddie backed up his words, battering Lopez with precise combinations until the referee stopped the fight. Lopez took the loss personally. 5. Michael Spinks. When Michael Spinks burst onto the light heavyweight scene, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad saw him as the perfect target, young, talented, but untested.
You know, and I seen that. Well, who's this head? Was Badu. He gives me the assalamu alaikum.
Their 1981 title fight was a passing of the torch moment. Eddie, the champion, was confident he'd teach the rising star a lesson. But Spinks shocked everyone by outboxing Eddie over 15 rounds. The loss devastated Eddie. He accused Spinks of running and boring the audience, while Spinks calmly replied, "I did what I had to do to win." Eddie's bitterness was legendary. For years, he refused to acknowledge Spinks's victory, saying he stole the belt with his legs, not his fists. Spinks's quiet demeanor only made it worse.
I'm terminated. Listen, there's ways you do that.
Eddie wanted a rematch. Spinks ignored him. That silent dismissal burned deeper than any punch. 6. Eddie Gregory's old gym rivals. Before fame, Eddie had plenty of enemies in the Brooklyn boxing scene. Young fighters who trained alongside him at the Times Square gym often clashed with his ego. They claimed Eddie was too proud to spar fair, often showboating and taunting even during practice. One of them, James Scott, famously said, Eddie thought he was Ali, but he didn't have Ali's class. When Eddie's career took off, those local rivals never forgot.
Ain't nothing happening.
There ain't no jerk going in him.
7. James Scott. Among all his rivals, none were more unique than James Scott, the light heavyweight who fought out of Rahway State Prison. In 1979, Eddie faced Scott in a highly publicized bout inside the prison walls, an unprecedented event.
No, Jeff Muhammad.
Yeah, man, I'm a Muhammad, man.
There you go.
All right,
And we have you, Jody Muhammad, too.
Scott was already furious, feeling disrespected by the boxing establishment. Eddie, with his cocky attitude, only poured fuel on the fire. During the build-up, Scott called Eddie a loudmouth with no heart. Eddie shot back, "He belongs behind bars, not in the ring." Inside the ropes, Eddie's superior skill earned him the win, but Scott refused to shake his hand afterward. "He's no champion," Scott said. "He's a clown." 8. Dwight Muhammad Kawi. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad's tension with Dwight Muhammad Kawi went far beyond the ring. Both men shared not only the same division, but also the same adopted faith. However, that shared name, Muhammad, sparked constant comparisons. Kawi was nicknamed the Camden Buzzsaw for his relentless aggression, while Eddie prided himself on intelligence and finesse.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I give the time, I would like to introduce you to a legend of boxing.
When asked who the real Muhammad of the light heavyweight division was, Eddie said, "It's me." The other guy just swings. Kawi took offense. The two traded insults in the press for months. Kawi even claimed Eddie ducked him to avoid embarrassment. Their fight never happened, but the hatred between them was raw and lasting. Kawi once said, "He talks faith, but fights with ego." Eddie laughed it off, but those words followed him for years. 9. Jerry the Bull. Martin. In the early 1980s, Jerry Martin was one of those tough, no-nonsense contenders who felt perpetually overlooked. When Eddie became champion, Martin saw him as a roadblock, a flashy fighter getting all the headlines while blue-collar boxers like him were ignored.
Yeah, well, we got a white guy working for us. I like that.
White guy behind the camera.
Martin wanted a title shot badly, but Eddie dismissed him publicly, saying, "He's just another sparring partner." That insult never sat well. Martin raged in interviews, saying, 10. Michael Nunn. As the 1980s faded, a new name emerged in the middleweight and light heavyweight scenes, Michael Nunn. Young, stylish, and supremely confident, Nunn reminded everyone of a younger Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, including Eddie himself. But instead of mutual respect, there was tension. Eddie, transitioning into training and commentary, often criticized Nunn's performances. "He's trying to be me," Eddie once said, "but without the brains." Nunn fired back, calling Eddie an old-timer living off one good win. Their verbal jabs never escalated into a fight, but the bitterness between them showed how Eddie's shadow still loomed over the new generation. He inspired many and irritated just as many.